or long-term, you know, positive impact on the sales of the book. So, we need, some alternatives to the Booker. I mean, because everything cannot be Booker.
But Booker has given a great impact
Oh yeah,
on
yeah,
India.
absolutely. Like I said, like there is interest in like short stories now, huge interest in short stories because of Heartland.
But
I'm
Booker
saying it's
has
very
given a
difficult
great.
to get the Booker or even be longlisted, shortlisted for the Booker, and many of the books are not published in the UK.
And you were of the opinion that no short story has won till now Booker,
has
and it
never
is
won.
it is very hard.
This is the first
And
one. This is
yeah,
the first
I was
selection.
I was very pessimistic, and I was discouraging both Banu ma'am and Deepa from having any high hopes. So I'm guilty of that. Yeah.
Banu, this is for you. What made you believe, even you, Deepa, what made you believe that Heartland would win? Because I've been told by them that you were strongly believing from the beginning. So I just want to understand what was going in your mind when you believed strongly that Heartland
at
would
first, when I handed over the book to Deepa to translate, then I never thought that it would go to Booker. I never had any high hopes about it. I just wanted that my book would cross the barriers and it would get wide range of readers. That was only my hope and expectation at the earliest. But Deepa has done well, and it went to right hands. And Kanishka was there. He put all his efforts, and there was, I think, Tara, who also put lot of efforts towards Stefan and Tara, who are the publishers of and other stories from London, and without out of my reach, our reach, let me say, it was long listed at first, and I was not greatly surprised because I never had any, I mean, any celebration of short, long list because I never knew anything about a short list or long list or some such thing. But afterwards, only then people started enjoying, and when the media people started contacting
getting
me,
attention.
I said it is something most important. Then I pursued it. Then it was shortlisted, and further we were invited at London to go and face that. I mean.
to be honest to the text that is finally produced. In this case, there was a fourth person also who was involved, who's not with us here today. His name is Stefan. He was also involved in this. He worked on this book in the UK. There was a fourth person also who was
There were
involved,
four
who's not
people.
with us
Tara
here today. His
Tobla
name is
was
Tara
involved.
also. He was also involved in this. He worked on this book in the UK, talking all the time about this one. There were four people. What it would look like, how many pages is it going to be, what the title is going to be, when are we going to publish it, what is the plan for the book, what is the plan for the authors. This is a very long, nuanced conversation, different people with different thought processes coming on board. I think translations take a very long time, and you need to put in the time.
Thank you. And this question is for you, Kanishka. What convinced you this book could work internationally?
And in connection, following up, like a very similar question, what makes a translated book sellable to the world?
So that's a very difficult question because there is actually no method to the madness. I got to know about, Banu's writings when Deepa won the Pen Presents grant, and I reached out to her along with the other translators translating from other languages who won the prize. And I read the collection and I felt that thematically it was very interconnected, even though the stories were disparate, that there were no characters who were recurring. And I, being an Indian, having lived in India all my life, I found a lot of things in the collection very new and very fascinating and disturbing. So I thought this is something that might, have a market overseas. And but I have to say that editors in the UK and US, they respond to a text on a case-to-case basis. They are not going to take up all the books, translations of an author if they won a prize. I mean, I experienced the same thing after Daisy won the Booker. I went to Frankfurt like a few months after Tomb of Sand won the Booker, and I got a lot of rejections for some of her translations. Not all of Gitanjali's translations have been picked up by UK, US publishers. They have to believe in the book. It's not like in India, that you have to sign up an author or a well-known author's translated work because they are well-known. You have to take them on. So, and Stefan always believed in the book and other stories, and they were also involved before Penguin and I got involved, because one of the benefits or one of the of winning that award, that grant, was that the translations were submitted to publishers, and one of them was another stories. So they were already familiar with the text, and then we negotiated the deal a few months later. So I mean, it's still very difficult to sell translations, and it's not as if I've started selling like a lot of works abroad after the two Booker wins now. But I got a mail from Scribe Publishers in Australia. They have brought out Heart Lamp in Australia, New Zealand, and the book has been reprinted multiple times. So the editor, who's based out of Australia, but she commissions translations for UK, US, and Australia, she told me that they've seen an increase in the sales for No Presents Please, another very famous translation of Jan Kaikini's stories. So and now they are interested in his new collection, translated by Tejaswani. So, I mean, it does have an impact, but I still feel that UK, US editors are very opinionated, very whimsical, and they know how they want to market the book. So, and also they also work on like big lead times, so if they acquire a book now, whether it's a book in English or a translated text, they are going to start the PR outreach well before the book is printed. The AI advanced information sheets and also the advanced copy, they are sent months in advance.
And in connection with your question, do you think there is a pattern, or do you see a pattern in the kind of translated books that succeed globally?
I mean, of course, there is interest in representation, diversity, lesser known voices. I mean, I've been told by a lot of publishers, they are interested in voices from, Kashmir, from the Northeast. They are interested in LGBTQA, I mean, I met the editor from Granta in Bombay a few months ago. He's interested in a lot of Dalit writings, So there is, I mean, they do have specific, spheres of interest. But at the end of the day, I still feel that, despite these two Bookers, it's a very difficult task to sell anything abroad. I'm struggling a lot with, ironically, I'm struggling a lot with Indian writing in English. I've had very little success, and that kind of worries me because I don't want to be labeled as, this agent who just focuses on or specializes on or excels in, translated fiction. But yeah, they're always open to meeting. And that happened before Daisy winning the Booker, because a lot of, the credit for opening up, the markets to translated fiction should go to Vivek Shanbag, because Gachar Gochar was a big success, not just in India, but in the UK, US, it was translated into multiple languages, and it was also word of mouth success. So the readers were rooting for the book, and they were, recommending it to a lot of people. So there has been a lot of interest in that, and I've had big success with a very major, Tamil writer. I mean, he's here, Jay Mohan, and I have sold some of his translations to FSG, which is like really difficult to do. And Transit is also publishing a novel of his, translated by Suchitra, who's also here. So I'm very optimistic, and there's also a big support system now in terms of fellowships, grants. I don't know whether you know about Armory Prize, but the winner of the Armory Prize gets published in the US. So that's a big deal. So the last two prize winners have been represented by me, but it's a tough battle. Yeah.
Yeah, so this question sorry, I just want to add that yes, it is very difficult to get. For the longest time, there were no prizes for translations. For the longest time, it was very hard to get reviews out of translated books. For the longest time, it was very hard to get translations included into literature festivals, for instance. So all of this was a struggle that happened over years, and so it people had to sustain at it and keep going at it. And then the Booker happened, and then it changed. But even so, it's not changing fast enough, as Kanishka is saying. Even today, there are struggles because it is still difficult to have prizes or awards or fellowships for translations, translators. There are fewer mentoring programs for translators, for instance, to learn the art and science of translation.
My biggest worry is that we can't run an industry or a genre, on the basis of the Booker. I mean, that's like really, really hard to get. Even to enter a book for the, be eligible for the Booker, you have to be published in the UK. And every year, only 2 or 3 books from South Asia translated into English are published in the UK, maybe at the most 4, because they also include poetry, they also include anthologies, which are not eligible for the Booker. And then the publisher has to believe enough in the book to enter it for the Booker. So it is, and my worry is that none of the other prizes in the UK, US, and the prizes in India have any direct impact, or long-term, positive impact on the sales of the book. So, we need some alternatives to the Booker, I mean, because everything cannot be Booker.
But Booker has given a great impact.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, there is interest in, short stories now, huge interest in short stories because of Heartland. I'm saying it's very difficult to get the Booker or even be longlisted, shortlisted for the Booker, and many of the books are not published in the UK.
So you were of the opinion that no short story has won till now Booker, and it is very hard. This is the first one. First selection.
I was very pessimistic, and I was discouraging both Banu ma'am and Deepa from having any high hopes, so I'm guilty of that, yeah.
Banu, this is for you. What made you believe, even you Deepa, what made you believe that Heartland would win? Because I've been told by them that you were strongly believing from the beginning. So I just want to understand what was going in your mind when you believed strongly that Heartland would win. At first, when I handed over the book to Deepa translate, then I never thought that it would go to Booker. I never had any high hopes about it. I just wanted that my book would cross the barriers and it would get wide range of readers. That was only my hope and expectation at the earliest. But Deepa has done well, and it went to right hands. And Kanishka was there. He put all his efforts, and there was, I think, Tara, who also put a lot of efforts towards Stefan and Tara, who are the publishers of and other stories from London. And without out of my reach, our reach, let me say, it was long listed at first, and I was not greatly surprised because I never had any, I mean, any celebration of long list because I never knew anything about short list or long list or some such thing. But afterwards only then people started enjoying, and when the media people started contacting me, I said it is something most important. Then I pursued it. Then it was shortlisted. And further, we were invited at London to go and face that, competition, to be there on that event. The tour to London was new to me, and while going, I lost my baggage in the transit, and I had some beautiful Mysore silk sarees purchased for the occasion. All of them were lost, and even my medicine was lost. 2 years earlier, I had undergone bypass surgery of my heart, and medicine is a must for me. I cannot skip medicine even for a single day, but my medicine was also lost. I never had clothes to change for the next day. We went there to Central London, and we never knew where we will get the Indian clothes, and we purchased all Western clothes for me, their pants, shirt, coats, everything, and I was most uncomfortable with that dress. And even without medicine, and even without proper clothing, and I was in full negativity, and there was my friend Kanishka, who used to harp every day morning, please madam, don't have any hopes about it, because till now no short story collection has won this contest, and only novels. There is a thought process that novels are literally somewhat higher than the short story collection, and yours is a very good rating, I do approve, but then short story collection, if at all it has to be one, the Booker people, the jury committee, they are to be very gutsy. I don't think they will be gutsy, and that was all his apprehension, and he transferred it to me day by day. Then I got enraged. I started quarreling with him. I said, if they don't consider my book for the contest, then why did they long listed it? And why did they short listed it? Why did they brought on the, there was huge publicity about it. I said, no, I don't want to agree. I don't want to approve. I don't want to fall in line with your thinking, I said. And one day I asked my people to go for sightseeing, and I was all alone at that premises. And then it was a great, tension for me. To diffuse that tension, I prayed, and then I manifested, and I imagined 100 times that our book was selected for Booker, and I went on to the dais, and I was congratulated, and I received the trophy, and I held high the trophy. All this thing was in my imagination only. I imagined hundreds of times, and then I sat, and my silence, I wrote the acceptance speech with that negativity, that I am accepting your award, I am accepting Booker, and I saw the previous accepting speeches of some of the authors where they were emotional, they thanked the Booker people, they thanked him or her, and there was a continuous process of thanksgiving. I thought, I will not do this. I am sure to get the award, I am sure to get the prize, and I am not going only to thank and complete it, because I have come from the background of social movements, and I have come from the soil of Karnataka, and I need to give some solid message when I go over stage. And I started drafting the acceptance speech, and I started writing how a short story is not negligible. Even I said, no short story is short. And you might have seen my acceptance speech. It is 8 minute speech and it was a big hit. Millions of people saw it. I don't know how all this process happened, how I was out of frustration and out of negativity. I wanted to jump into positivity and I wrote that speech and imagined and reimagined hundreds of times that I am going to get the prize, and the same thing happened. I got the prize. I went there and received the trophy and I started directing my acceptance speech. I don't know, it is all out of my frustration.
No, this is wonderful. You turn the pessimism of other people into your optimistic
Yes, yes, it's the
win. Yeah.
most positive energy.
Thank you for that. And Deepa, did you? I know you reached out to Kanishka first with the stories, if I'm not wrong.
He did.
Yes, Kanishka reached out to you. And did you believe that this would travel across the borders?
Not really. Also, I don't know. I don't think it's, well, at least I can't speak for others, but when I write something or translate something, you don't think of it as a project that will win prizes. Or of course it is. The International Booker is very welcome and all that, but you don't start off, typing your first translation out, thinking it's going to get published in another country or. But that's not the point at all, right? So that was I can't write for prizes. That's what I can't write for some awards, or if it wins an award, if it's shortlisted, longlisted, whatever, that's amazing. But so when I started working on these stories, there was never a thought that it would work as a book that would go to the bookers. But yeah, I'm glad that it did.
Great. And this question is for the three of you. How can publishers and literary bodies in India treat translators as creative equals? Because we see a gap that the translators are not valued enough. But we need translators to take our stories to the rest of the world. What kind of platform that we can provide? What are the things that we can do to translation in India?
But translators in India, if you look at the contracts with mainstream publishers, everything is split equally. So I don't see where where there is any disparity in, what the author is getting and what the translator is getting. Yes, in the UK, US, things work differently, and the publishers have to pay the translator a translation fee, which has been agreed, by, the translators, association, and then that is, it may not be legally enforceable, but if they are getting paid anything less than that, it's unethical, which is why all these publishers are applying for grants all the time. And that's a very hefty fee, and it's a lot more than what publishers in India can afford to pay translators. And like I said, the problem is not lack of funding, lack of initiative, lack of fellowships. Look at what all Ashoka Translation Center is doing. They have so many young students, aspiring translators who are now getting book deals with publishers like Penguin Harper. The problem is that we need UK, US publishers to acquire these books, for the books to be written about in the UK, US markets, to be eligible for the prizes. And there is a lot of reluctance even now.
That is what she's asking, how to coordinate with UK
So
and US
I think
publishers.
my radical suggestion is that we should set up a publishing house in the UK, US, or maybe a publishing house in the UK, you know, which is focusing
Kanishka,
on
who has to, you,
no,
yes,
so which
yes.
is focused on South Asian literature. And there are agencies. One of the reasons why there is so much interest in and so much interest in writings from the Far East, Japan, Korea, because there are agencies. There are agencies in the UK who specialize in selling translation rights of Korean writers into English, selling rights of Japanese writers. So if you see the number of translations of Japanese and Korean writers and compare it to Indian languages, which have so many languages, there is no comparison. So because they are actively looking for translations and they are pitching it to publishers. And we also have presses in the UK that focus on specific languages, like something like a Charco Press, you know, they've had a lot of success at the Bookers, you know, a lot of books longlisted, shortlisted for the Booker. They specialize in translations from Spanish into English. And I mean, efforts are being made, you know, so there is a small press called Comma Press, and they are now doing a lot of anthologies, you know, of stories from Indian languages into English because they have a grant. And this is how Open Letters Press is being able to publish, you know, Fehmida Riaz's book, you know, historical fiction translated by Sana Chaudhary, or now Mehndi Khwaja's, you know, translation of Akhtar Moinuddin, because they have support and funding. So yeah, this support has to be institutional, and I think the government should be involved too, like the state body, the national body. Because in India, it is restricted. The readership is restricted. Publishers are publishing too many books across genres. Now the JCB prize has shut down. It was championing translations. Which are the other prizes that champion translation? And also, like I've also seen with prizes like JCB, despite their huge emphasis on translations and the lot of work they've done for translation, these prizes only help the book that wins the prize, huh? And maybe perhaps the next book by the same author, translator, doer, you know, like, so, you know, when Khalid Javed won the prize,
Javed, yeah.
I'm sure, you know, his next book and the third book will get picked up, you know, and they'll get good advances, him and the translator, even if the translator is different. Same applies to Benjamin, but Benjamin is already like really big because, you know, he's published so many commercially successful books in English too. And when Good Days was published, there was no JCB. But that doesn't like then spill over to other, you know, authors writing in those languages. It doesn't work like this.
So do you, Moutushi and Deepa, agree with Kanishka's pitch that yes, there is enough
I'll give you an
infrastructure?
example, and sorry if I'm throwing you under the bus, Moutushi. So after Heartlamp on the Booker, I re-pitched a collection of short stories by a Kannada writer, translated by a very well-known name. I don't want to name names, and Moutushi really believes in the book. But you know, she could not get it past sales because this is how it works. You know, I mean, it will have an impact. People will be open to reading, but every book will be judged by its own merit. What the market potential is, what the commercial viability is. If publishers are struggling to sell books in the sci-fi space or in the LGBTQA space or any genre, they are going to be reluctant unless the author has a huge following, you know. So this is how it works. At the end of the day, it is a business for the publishers.
So yeah, see, one of the things that I want to add, I mean, of course, it is very different, as Kanishka says, in the UK and the US when it comes to translations. It is very different in general in the US and the UK, all across, right from the point of submission. It's very difficult for an individual author to even submit a book to a UK editor, right? Because it has to go through an agent. That's a whole different mountain to climb. But when it comes to translations in India, one of the things that is essential from the point of view of a publisher who publishes into translations is to give the translator equal space. Right from the point of view of the agreement that you signed, it's a legal agreement that binds both me to the author, but it also binds me to the translator. I am committed to the author to publish her book at a certain time, with a certain kind of attention. I am equally committed to the translator to publish that book and commit to that translator. So the legal agreement has to give space to the translator, equal space. That's the first thing that needs to be done. It is happening. That is happening now. I'm happy to say that that's happening now. The other thing is give the translator space on the book cover. You know, that's also important. Give them that, let them know that we see them, let the reader know, let the reader see them also. There are international publications happening still where the translators are not carried on the cover. We read a lot of international fiction without knowing that it's at all translated. And the third thing that has to be done is, as publishers, we need to ensure that we are diverse in the kind of narratives that we are putting out there, so as to tell the UK and the US that we have diverse narratives and we have diverse stories, which we do. across our languages. If you look at Malayalam, Kannada, Bengali, Kashmiri, Assamese, Gujarati, look at the kind of writing that we have. The stories are already there, you know. So if we provide and give enough emphasis and bring out more translations from other different languages from India, then it tells international publishers that we have that kind of literary heritage. Yeah.
So, one thing that the global recognition for Heartlamp and Tomb of Sand has done is that now authors, they reach out to me, or their family members reach out to me, or their publishers who have published their books in, Tamil, Kannada, or whichever Indian language, they reach out to me. They are very open to the concept of working with agents. For the longest time, it was the translator who was acting as a scout, who was acting as an advocate, because I'm constrained by my linguistic limitations. I don't understand a word of Kannada and so many other languages from which I'm representing books. And even now, translators do that. They are the first, the biggest advocate and champion. But now authors are very open to working with translators, because like 5-6 years ago, I was forced to do deals where I was only the translator, the agent, and then the author was signing a contract directly with the publisher. And that kind of does not incentivize me enough to take on so many projects where the author or the estate is also not bored. Now, authors are very willing to work with agents. They understand their importance. And I give the credit to translators first, translator like Deepa, and then also to the international recognition that, these books have gotten. It's created that awareness amongst translators, authors, that it's important to work with professional agents.
Right, yeah. Thank you. We only have 5 minutes left, so one important thing is what I observed with your discussion, Kanishka, is there will be an eminent author and there will be a very versatile and good translator, and it will be translated into English. Even then, if these two people doesn't have a person like you as an agent, it will not click, right? Yes, of course.
No, I'm not like advocating
Yeah,
for myself.
because you will find out a foreign publisher, in English publisher, that I and Deepa may not do, will not be able to do it. And this is a teamwork, right? This is a teamwork of an author and a translator, editors, and agent like you.
Yeah,
If
it's a collaborative effort.
yeah, collaboration. That is what I wanted to say. If you didn't search for some good publisher, yeah, their hot lamp would not have clicked. That is also that the importance of an agent also I'm bringing it. That is also very important.
Yes, definitely. I don't think without your strategy and representation, we could go so far. And agency is definitely very important.
Yes.
I agree. And as we have just few minutes left, I'll try to end up with one question, which is a bit controversial. Could be if you choose to answer, which is which Indian language you think has the great scope for going international? Next, each of you can choose just pick one Indian language. Which Indian language has the scope to be sellable globally? I don't mean in commercial terms, but reaching out to global audience.
That's a very fair question, because
That's why I said it's a
yeah,
bit controversial.
because every single language has extraordinary stories. It just takes a good advocate, a good translator for it to come out in English or whatever. So I don't think it's fair to pit one language against the other and say this is better or that is not as better. So I'm not sure that's it.
You're taking the trophy home for the answer. And you guys have any idea of which language you think would, your favorite?
No, actually, you see, in Kerala, there are a lot of translation work is going on there. Each and every book will be translated there, and the translation work is going along with the original work there. They work hard. There will be translation of each and every work from Malayalam to English and English to Malayalam. This work is being done rigorously in Malayalam. But you can see Malayalam never, though there are so many literates and a lot of literature is there, it has not reached to
That's
global level.
That's because of the publishers, no?
Yes,
They will.
yes,
We are at the women mercy. I'm really surprised that a book like Mustache has not been published in the UK.
It's not a fault of the language, it's
Not
the
at all.
publishers.
So, yeah, it's the publisher.
Yeah, so we can't blame the
Codedays is
language on-
also not published. So I think, I mean, I can answer. I think
And what is the criteria that a foreign publisher would accept the Indian translation?
sometimes it's only the financials. If a book is very long, then the publisher will have to pay even more money because the translation fee is calculated per word. So sometimes it's just a matter of costing. Sometimes the publisher has not had good experience, or has not had success with a work they've published from South Asian language. So this happens in like publishing across the board in India, that if you take on too many, works of science fiction or crime writing, and then something spectacular comes your way, you end up not taking it on. So it's a pity that so many extraordinary, brilliant books, published in many languages of India don't have a publisher in the UK.
Yeah. Thank you for the wonderful insights, all of you, and thank you everyone for being wonderful audience. We'll move on to the next session. Thank you. Thank you.
Foundation, Sheshatripuram Education Trust, Siri, SKME, Vesco, and Gina Group. So let's move on to the next session, presenting by MSIL, Mysore Sales International Limited, on the session Beyond Borders, Multilingual Sensibility in South Indian Literature.
By Jane Kaikini, Carlos Tamilavan, K.R. Meera, C. Mrinalini, and B. J. Mohan. And this session will be moderated by Suchitra Ramachandran.
I'm requesting the speakers on stage. Let me give a glance of the events happening in the other venues as well. So, exact agi 11. So, 11 o'clock again. So, ನಿಮಗೆ ಅಕ್ಷರ ಸೊ ಆ ಸ್ಟೇಜಲ್ಲಿ ಶುರುವಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. AI ಅನಾವರಣ ಸಾಧನ ಮಾಯಾವಿ ಸರ್ವಾಧಿಕಾರಿ. So, this is a topic. So, speakers are like Hemant Rao, Shrija Vin, Palak Sharma, Pratibha Nandakumar. ಸೊ ಅದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ವೇದಿಕೆಗಳಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಸೆಷನ್ಗಳು ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ. ಹಾಗೇನೆ ಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳ ಬಿಡುಗಡೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಇದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಮಾರಾಟವೂ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಇದರೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಮುಖಾಮುಖಿ ವೇದಿಕೆ ಇರುವಂಥದ್ದೇ ನೇರವಾಗಿ ನೀವು ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಆಥರ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಮಾತನಾಡುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಅವಕಾಶ. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಆ ಟೈಮ್ ಸ್ಲಾಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಇಲ್ಲಿದೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಹಂಚ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಮುಖಾಮುಖಿ ಸೊ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ 11 ಗಂಟೆಯಿಂದ 11:30ವರೆಗೆ ಸೊ ಮುಖಾಮುಖಿ ವೇದಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗುವಂಥದ್ದು ವಿವೇಕ್ ಶಾನ್ಭೋಗ್ ಅವರು. ಸೊ ನಂತರ 11:30ರಿಂದ 12 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ರವಿ ಮಂತ್ರಿ ಅವರು ಸಿಗ್ತಾರೆ ತಮ್ಮೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಮಾತನಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ. ಇನ್ನು 12ರಿಂದ 12:30ವರೆಗೂ ಕೂಡ ದೀಪಾ ಬಸ್ತಿ ಅವರು ಸಿಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾಗೆ 12:30ರಿಂದ 1 ಗಂಟೆ ಜಯಂತ್ ಕಾಕಿನಿ ಅವರು. ನಂತರ 1ರಿಂದ 1:30ವರೆಗೆ ರೂಪಾಬಾಯಿ ಅವರು. ಸೊ 1:30ರಿಂದ 2 ಗಂಟೆವರೆಗೆ ಪ್ರತಿಭಾ ನಂದಕುಮಾರ್ ಅವರು. ಹಾಗೆ 2 ಗಂಟೆಯಿಂದ 2:30ವರೆಗೆ ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ ಓಲ್ಗಾ ಅವರು. ಹಾಗೆ 2:30ರಿಂದ 3 ಗಂಟೆವರೆಗೆ MS ಆಶಾದೇವಿ ಅವರು. ಹಾಗೆ 3ರಿಂದ 3:30ವರೆಗೆ ಕುಂ ವೀರಭದ್ರಪ್ಪ ಅವರು. 3:30ರಿಂದ 4 ಗಂಟೆವರೆಗೆ ಸುಜಾತಾ ಶ್ರೀನಿವಾಸರಾಜು. ಹಾಗೆಯೇ 4ರಿಂದ 4:30ವರೆಗೆ ಬಿ ಜಯಮೋಹನ್ ಅವರು. ಹಾಗೆಯೇ 4:30ರಿಂದ 5 ಇದು ಕೊನೆಯ ಸೆಷನ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಐ ಮೀನ್ ಲೇಖಕರನ್ನ ತಾವು ಭೇಟಿ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಶ್ರೀಯುತ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ್ ಪಾಟೀಲ್ ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಸಿಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಅವಕಾಶವನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊತೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಎಸ್, ಒನ್ಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ let's call our speakers for the session on Beyond Borders, Multilingual Sensibility in South Indian Literature.
By Jane Kaikini, Carlos Tamilavan, K.R. Meera, C. Mrinalini, B. J. Mohan. And this session will be moderated by Suchitra Ramachandran.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome all our speakers on stage. Please be seated. And ma'am, over to you.
No, ma'am. Please sit. Check. Good morning. We are here for a session on multilingual sensibilities in Indian literature, South Indian literature. Joining us today is a very eminent and a very diverse panel. We have with us Sri Jayan Kaikni, creator writer, Sri Carlos Tamilavan, who is a creator writer scholar, Sri Jaymohan, writer critic, Sri K.R. Meera, writer, and C. Mrinalini was also a writer critic. So a very diverse panel and a very broad topic is what we have today, multilingual sensibilities in South Indian literature. We were talking about this topic a little bit in a WhatsApp group that was helpfully created for us by the Book Brahma team. And in that conversation, Jayan Kaikni sir said something which I think will be a good foothold to start this conversation with. He said, literature is a window created by writers to connect and understand the human world. So literature is a window through which writers are able to somehow connect with the world. And I think my first question would be, in this window, what is the role of language? It's particularly interesting because in today's panel, we have writers whose mother tongue is not the language that they write in. Jayan Kaikni sir's mother tongue, I think, is Konkani and he writes in Kannada. Jaymohan's mother tongue is Malayalam and he writes in Tamil. Might be the case for some of the other panelists, I'm not sure. But what role does the language one writes in play in the literature that they create? What is the relationship between literature and language? I'd be very happy if the creator writers can weigh in on this first. Thank you. So please.
Hello. Namaskara. Good morning. I think by suggesting a very nice question, I have asked for trouble myself. Yeah, that's very, the language, it's a typical Indian problem where what we speak at home is not the language we write in, even otherwise. Konkani, like there are many languages we speak at home, like Konkani, Havyaka, Tulu, Kodava. There are so many, there are so many languages. These are the broader examples I have given. There are hundreds of languages we speak at home. Finer, even in Konkani, there are Goan Konkani, there is Ratnagiri Konkani, there is North Kannada Konkani, there is South Kannada Konkani. Even weddings don't happen because they speak this Konkani and that Konkani. Because then you can't fight in same Konkani. The fluency of fight goes away. See, the point is, it's not, so that's the beauty of it. But the tonality is different, the tonality, the tone. So then when you write, like the Yashwant Chittal, he is a Konkani writer, who speaks Konkani at home. So many writers are there. I speak Konkani at home. Vivek Shanbag is a Konkani writer. He speaks Konkani at home. But in our writing, if a Konkani reader reads, he can sense a Konkani tone. He can easily, Gopal Krishna Pai, he is a Konkani writer. He can sense. And again, there are two different Konkanis. My Konkani is different than Gopal Krishna Pai, Yashwant Chittal's and Shanbag's Konkani. But so that even difference can also be made out. See, this way, there's a different kind of a role, language role playing happens. But that is the beauty of it. And this is a challenge, I think for a writer. And I remember when we were very small kids, before we could go to school and learn in Kannada school, our parents will talk in Kannada to hide something from us. Avanige idu kodudu beda and all. Because they thought we will not understand it. But we understood already because we were playing with the kids who talked in Kannada. So like this, Kannada was a language of secret. See, this kind of a thing, that is the beauty of a language. So that's how I think the language is a very language becomes a element of communication. That's why I'm telling language comes into the. If I am alone, there is no language, there is no story. Moment the language comes, there is another person. Many times people think the communication means he is communicating with the world. What is that world? There is another person. When he is writing, the reader is unseen, reader is anonymous, but he is another person. People don't imagine there is another person. So the language means there is a society, it's a human world again. So I think I am talking too much about it, but others should also add to it.
Language as a window to the human world is a great thought. Can anyone add to this, please?
Cool. Yeah. Pardon?
To human thought. Why?
Yeah, language and literature. I am reading a book now. Language Instinct. The title of the book is Language Instinct by a professor from Harvard University. Very interesting book. He says language is a part of our body, just like your eyes, ears. Language also functions like that. And he is a cognitive psychologist. He teaches linguistics and psychology together. The interesting part is he does lot of tests on the brain by putting cathode and such things, and he is making people speak and record the reaction on the brain. When we speak a language or when we recite a poem, the left hemisphere brightens, and your right hand and left brain are linked. Such very interesting things are written there, and he is going on writing lot of books. If you put your finger on the computer and press for the YouTube channel, is Pinker, Stephen V-E-N, Stephen Pinker. Very quite interesting scholar, and he bases everything on Chomsky. Some of you might have a lot of YouTubes by Chomsky calling America as a terrorist state. He is an American and world famous linguist. We all studied linguistics during our post-graduation or above that. And I think, you can, with 2-3 sentences, you can, come around and go to everyone. So instead of asking somebody to speak elaborately, what I want to say is, linguistics, this language and brain are linked together. As we think, language is not something very, trivial. It is a very important part of humanity. And he says, basing on Chomsky's linguistics, there is one root from that all world languages come. So many things, I don't want to take, others'
The
time.
human element to language, I think that's a very well-made point because there is so much that speaks to the commonality between languages.
Between languages.
Yeah. I'll return to the question about writing in a language other than one's mother tongue. So Jemon sir, your mother tongue is, so even Carlos sir, you are from Kumari district, which is also a border.
Yeah, that experience is quite interesting. I studied.
So maybe I'll come back to that in a little bit.
Yeah, on one point, I studied from Trivandrum, now called Thiruvananthapuram. Tamil MA in Thiruvananthapuram. So you can understand the link between Malayalam and Tamil. And I was born in a village, he knows, Padmanabhapuram. It was the capital of the erstwhile Triangur state, which was ruled by the Malayalam kings, just like Mysore king. So India was very different. Then I went to Tirunelveli. There DMK was talking about some kind of identity. Then I migrated to Bangalore to understand Kannada. Now I just taught in a department for 25 years about Tamil literature through Kannada. So I have link with all the languages. So you can go on to the other persons.
But how does writing in a language that's not your mother tongue work? Can you please reflect on that, sir?
My mother tongue is Malayalam and I am writing in Tamil. People used to ask me, what is the language of my mind? I cannot say that because sometimes it is Malayalam and sometimes it is Tamil. Sometimes I am imagining in Malayalam and writing in Tamil. And sometimes I am imagining in Tamil and surprisingly I am writing in Tamil. So it's going on, it's a very complicated thing. But I claim myself as a writer from Nanjal Nadu, not from Tamil Nadu or from Kerala. So we have a very unique culture. I want to say an incident. A few years back, a person from my Nanjal Nadu, he is a very important Tamil writer. His name is Kumar Selva. He is a very native person. He talked in a literary seminar about some literary issues in his own language, in his own dialect. Immediately somebody asked me to translate it into Tamil. Actually, he was talking in Tamil. So what is the difference? It has a unique style which is very close to Malayalam. So writing in Tamil and imagining in Malayalam creates a very different, very strange effect, which can be called a strange style. We can easily create humor with element of another language. We can easily create new dictions and a new way of expressions if you have another language in your mind. And the third thing is, we have a set of writers in Nanjal Nadu, me and Nanjal Nadan, and even young writers also. We rarely use the common cliches of Tamil mainland. The mainland often fall into cliches because we have another language in our mind. We can easily observe the cliches they use without knowledge in their language. So we can easily avoid these cliches. So a multilingual writer is a blessing. We have our own cultural area to narrate. We have our own imagination to narrate something. And we can use our language in a different way. That's a very important thing. That's a very curious thing in Indian literature. Once I visit Sikkim, the hotel person said there is nearly 60 languages there in Sikkim. It's a very tiny state, you know. Then I was surprised and I asked him, so then which language you are using to connect with these 60 languages? And he said he is using Nepali language to connect these 60 languages because the Nepalis are doing business with these 60 languages. So it's a very, very, very cute Indian thing that we think in another language, we write in another language, and that you translate it in another language. So if I want to understand my work properly, I have to read it in English. Thank you.
There is, I think, another dimension. One is where your mother tongue is not, your mother tongue is one language and you write in another language. The other is when you're writing in your own mother tongue, like K.R. Meera ma'am, but you populate or you situate your work in different parts of, other places where other languages are spoken. Like Arachar is, I think, set in Bengal, and The Poison of Love is set in Vrindavan. Even Jayant Kaikni, sir, your Mumbai stories, you lived in Mumbai for a good part of your life. So you come from almost three cultures, Konkani, Kannada, and to some extent the Mumbai culture, as we call it. Your stories, sir, have also been set in Telugu film industry, which is a very different. So how does this sort of, when you write, when you try to inhabit another lingual space, how do you write it? How do you learn about another language culture? How does it translate into the writing? How do you change as a result of it? Can you reflect on this a little bit? Thank you.
Hello, good morning. It's very easy because human beings are the very same everywhere in the world. And there are only a few permutation combinations of human emotions and conditions all over the world among the human beings and this species. And you can understand, even without knowledge, as Tamilvan sir said, languages in our body, we have a body language as well. So, which enables us to communicate with others who don't speak our language. And I want to point out that we are all speaking about this multilingual sensibility across borders and all, assuming that these languages we write in were born on such and such date when the nation decided that the states were constituted on the basis of language. It is not like that. The languages were there, the cultural elements, the geographical conditions, the historical situations which shaped those languages were already there. It exists like that even now, even after the division of states happened. So I would say that Malayalam, I read Malayalam Quran recently, and one sentence which struck me is that Adiyil Manusha Rashi Oratta Samudayamairunnu. I think all the South Indians here will understand this even without translation. Adiyil, that is, in the beginning, the whole mankind was just one society. So naturally, if we were one society, we would be having the same language. And then we started traveling. We were divided into groups. We were nomads, hunters, gatherers, fishermen, sailors, and we started traveling to different parts of the world, speaking the same language, but acquiring new words and new emotions on the way, depending on the situations, depending on the geography, depending on the plants, animals they came across. Okay, so my new work, that is, the book is in the oven, right now in the oven, has its background in Kazakhstan. So you will ask why Kazakhstan on Kazakhstan. But I found out that the Central Asia and the nomads from Central Asia who crossed the Hindu Kush and came into India, and even before they occupied different parts of India, they came to Kerala also, and they brought their own words as well. Most of the words, most of the food we eat, most of the terms we use to denote the different day-to-day activities in Kerala are not from Kerala. So they came from different parts of the world. God knows from which part, because they were kind of Greeks, Africans, Arabs, and Central Asian people, Iranians, who no else, no. So all these words are engraved in this, and we are already in a multilingual. We have already closed, as a species, the humankind has already crossed the linguistic barriers in each and every stage of our development is what what my belief is. And I would share with you something which surprised me when I was in Kazakhstan. For example, they call the word Bala. Bala is for denotes child there also. The word Nasr, it denotes kind of drishti, or they have a custom also to protect from evil eye. They make certain this Nasar Kavach, no? The drishti Kavach things there also. So I think all these rituals, all these superstitions, all these beliefs, many of the things associated with religious customs which we think it is our own jnana, it is our own vijnana, are not ours at all. They belong to the whole mankind. They came to us because those who had found out, discovered, invented them, traveled all the way to reach us, reach this part of the country, or reach this part of the land, and shared it with us.
So can I say, even if you write in Malayalam, you are at heart
Even
a
if I write in
multilingual, right?
Malayalam, I can understand what Bengali at the other part of the country will undergo. And I will say that it is easy for me as a woman to write about the plight of the women across the country, across the world, because we women of all centuries share the same kind of emotional plethora.
Great. I'll maybe go back a little bit. Yeah. No, that was, but I wanted to, say it in a way that will elicit the answer from you. We were talking earlier, I think, about borders. So earlier we were talking about how some writers here are from border regions, and the role of the border region in cultivating this linguistic felicity. And you said, well, Telugu almost has no borders. There's been this porousness all through history. So can you shed some light on this? Historically, classically, how have our languages been? How close or how distinct have our languages been?
I'll just say something. It's not just languages. I was talking about literatures. Apart from languages, which I think Carlos sir is the most eligible person to talk about the linguistic aspect of it, I'll be talking about the literatures across borders, because now we are talking about Kannada, Tamil, Telugu and Malayalam being separate because of the linguistic states. But in olden days, all the languages were just together. Geographically, of course, there was some space, but you can't call them borders the way you define it now. So now I would actually say that it was borderless. All our Indian languages were practically borderless at that point of time. Since we are confined to the South Indian languages, what I would like to say is, when I'm talking about literature, you can see how one language sentiment, because the whole point was actually sentiments, multilingual, we are talking about sensibilities, right? Sensibilities crossed over to other languages. So, and I can't take away the Bhakti movement from it if I want to talk about literatures. So the first thing was the Bhakti movement, which started in the 7th, 8th centuries in Tamil Nadu, Alvars and Nainars, and then you have Shankaracharya from Kerala. You already have two languages there. And then you have from 10th century, you have 11th rather, Basaveshwara, with Veerashaivism. And you see three major religious sects happened one by one from the 7th century onwards. and they all permeated into the rest of the languages. See, and in 10th century you have Ramanuja from Sriperumbudur, Tamil Nadu. But whom did he influence? He influenced not just the Tamilians. He influenced Annamacharya to Tyagaraja. The Visishtadvaita was what actually taken up in their compositions. You can see that. And when you talk about Alvars and Nainars in Tamil Nadu, in 16th century, Sri Krishna Deva Raya, who ruled from Hampi, his mother tongue was Tudu. He was Kannada Samrajya Neta. He wrote only in Telugu. He only patronized Telugu poets. And he himself wrote a kavya called Amukta Malyada, which is about a Andal. You can see Krishna Deva Raya himself had 4 languages in him. He didn't write about Telugu poet, he wrote about Goda Devi, Kodai, or Chudukurtaranchar, whichever way you call her. So he wrote in his kavya, he was talking about Tamil, Alvar, and he was actually ruling Kannada Samrajya from Hampi, and he was a Telugu writer. And all his poets were only Telugu. So where are the borders there? And in the 11th century when you have Veerashaiva originated from this place, Karnataka. But of course, Palgurki Somanatha is the person that comes to my mind. While Basaveshwara had his Anubhava Mantapa where everybody was there, all casteless, genderless society, he tried to reform. You know what a reformer he was. Especially Kannadigas, I don't have to tell who Basaveshwara is. So, did anybody in Kannada write his biography? Basaveshwara's Vachanas, we all recite even now. It was a Telugu poet who wrote the biography of Basaveshwara. Palkurki Somanatha of the 12th century, he was very much influenced by Mallikarjuna Pandita Raja, who himself was Ekalavya disciple, I would say, of Basaveshwara. So from him he learned that, and Mallikarjuna Pandita Raja told Palkurki Somanatha about Basaveshwara, and Palkurki Somanatha ended up writing his magnum opus, Basava Puranam, in Telugu. First time you have a Puranam about a contemporary human being, contemporary hero of the society, contemporary hero who went against Vaidika Mata, and he was talking about Veerashaivam, a new sect altogether. So here I am already saying Kannada and Telugu are mingling so easily. So Palkurki Somanatha, and then even Nannaya, our own Adikavi Nannaya, who wrote Mahabharata with him, who was the Krishna, he called himself Arjuna, and he called Narayana Bhattu his Krishna, as in Kurukshetra war. What Krishna did to Arjuna, helped Arjuna, how. Similarly, Narayana Bhattu is helping me in writing this Mahabharata. That Narayana Bhattu was a Kannada poet. So, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, these were actually the boundaries that we formed later. And in Malayalam, we have Manipravala. Manipravala is a genre. And what Manipravala, mingling of 2 languages, that is very much evident from the first kavya of Telugu. So, Manipravala is a common feature of Malayalam and Telugu literatures. So across, even if I can go even up to 17th, 18th centuries where you have Tanjavur, where you have Nayaka Rajas, and you have even Pratapasimha, later Maratha king, ruling Tanjavur, all their court poets were Telugu. None of them were Tamil, though it was based in Tanjavur. So you have the first feminist women poet, Muthupalani, in Pratapasimha's court. So he was a Maratha king, and she was a Telugu poet in his court. So you see, across, if you see, there are a lot of parallels, but these 3 languages were mingling all the time. Of course, Tamilians had Nainars and Alvars, and Kannada has, and Malayalam, of course, they had the Shankaracharya, and then Tamilians had Ramanuja too. But unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, Telugu never had an indigenous religious movement. So, Telugu was actually taking all religions from other parts. It never had an indigenous religious movement. Absorption. That is the best thing about a language and literature. You can also give a negative connotation to it. Depends upon your point of view. But that is what Telugu is. That's what I'm saying.
It makes any language very alive if it is able to absorb the influences.
Thank you.
No. Thank you so much. This is very helpful to have this sort of a very broad historical overview. What this helps, I think, us in when we read the literatures today, the modern literatures today, I think we are also able to appreciate how close our cultural underpinnings are through this. But maybe I will just ask.
Let me ask you one question. Do these cultural underpinnings end or begin with that? If you go a little beyond this, we can say that we can see that Teri Gatha, written by the Buddhist monks, not sannyasins, no? They were actually the first feminist.
I was talking about Telugu only.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
said Mudra.
Even I know
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that I know.
Yeah, but everything came from that also. So we always forget about the Buddha tradition and Jaina tradition, which preceded all these religious movements, and we lose a lot of imaginations and what should I say, recordings of the human conditions in those times.
But to follow from that,
1 minute. We can continue certain things, raised by Mrinalini about Telugu. Now, after independence, there is another characteristic, that is languages become an identity.
question, but
Yeah.
please continue.
So, Tamil is an identity. Kannada is an identity. So one identity is fighting with another identity. Marathi identity. So how does it come about? How you are saying, Telugu, everything was absorbed. Even in Tamil, during that period, before independence struggle, that is 19th century, 18th century, Puranams were written. Basava Puranam is translated into Tamil also. Kannada, it was originally written in Kannada, I think. Telugu. So it is very famous in Kannada. So one Purana goes to other languages also. There was no language barrier. Now, language becomes another reality, another political reality. Making use of that language, you can capture power. How does it come about? How it evolved into another reality? If we talk about that, because recently there were some controversies, which language came from which language and all that, all these things came. So if we are able to talk about that, don't you think?
I think we can focus on the literatures.
Not controversial things.
No, one way to focus this question is to ask, in many languages there is a strain of having a pure language movement. In Tamil we have, of course, Tanithamaliyakam. I'm sure other languages have this to some extent. My question is, to what extent do they enrich the language? Language, for example, Kottaravai, which J. Mohan has written, is entirely in pure Tamil. I would like to know if I think any of you can answer. If you may, yes, sir, please, sir.
Yeah, the pure Tamil,
Jayant Kaikni, sir.
as a professor in Tamil and working in Canada, pure Tamil movement came for some purpose. In 16th century in Kannada also there was a pure Kannada movement. So not only in Tamil.
But how does that affect the literature? How does that enrich our literature? Can we please talk
Yeah,
about
no,
that?
as far as I am concerned, we all during our young days, we all became members of that movement. But later we all left it. That happened in my case.
Jayant,
So,
sir, you had a point?
maybe because there was some constraint, there were some rigid rules. But I have never seen, Jayakanthan has written a very good story about this pure Tamil movement. There is a man always rocking the chair. He is a pure Tamil movement member. He is always rocking the chair. He is depicted as a kind of psychological case by Jayakanthan, a Tamil writer. Nobody bothered about it. Nobody, wanted to beat him or anything. But I have seen no pure Tamil movement man has written any good creative literature. That's my point of view. Jay Mohan,
Yeah, I support Tamilavan. In my outlook, I would definitely say two things. One is purity and another clarity. These are the wrong words in literature. There is no pure literature or pure language. actually mixing and not condemnating is good thing in literature. And second thing, ambiguity is the way of literature,
Right.
not clarity.
Not clarity.
So I always support these two ideas, not purity, no clarity. So I am using my multi-language skill to create ambiguity, not clarity.
Great.
So,
but at the same time, you know,
one main thing, I wrote 2 or 3 works in pure Tamil. One is Kottavai, as mentioned by Sujitra. But I used it as a literary device to create a particular text. I never used a pure language throughout my career. For our next novel, I used a common language, which is very, very interconnected with other languages. So I never support any kind of purity moments, even in language or religion or morality also. Thank you.
Great. Great. Jain sir?
I think I have some time.
Yes, we have time. We have a lot of time.
See, because I think the language, we are talking about language. I think for a writer, experience is the language. Because he is doing to evoke an experience. See, recently I met a very senior woman, Rajalakshmi N. Rao, who wrote most modernist stories in early 50s, then stopped writing in Kannada, who then later became a sannyasin, and now she is still in Mysore. Recently her book of collection has come, first collection anthology has come by her readers, published. She recently I met, she said some word, fleeting words, each person has his own capacity to receive love and give love, something she said. It has stayed with me, capacity to receive love and capacity to give love, something like that. See, in the same way, the language also has its own capacity to receive love and capacity to give love. And I like that statement. It has a lot of enigmatic, that something is there. I'll give you a couple of things which I experienced in my native place, Gokarna. It is a pilgrim place, Punya Kshetra, where people come from all states, Tamil Nadu, Malayalam, and everywhere, Telugu Desam, everywhere. Because in childhood, people used to come in tourist buses. So I have heard Tamil, Telugu in tourist place. So all languages I could hear. And there was a sadhu in our place. He was a Mauni sadhu. He never talked. He used to come for, asking for afternoon, for rice and for everybody. Because he was a sadhu, everybody used to give him. We used to envy him because he used to have food from everybody's house of different taste. Anna, saru and everything. So he will come and my mother would give him very fresh food. Like that he will go to everybody's house and then he will eat. There was a temple near our house. We used to go there to study, me and my friend. We used to go there. His name was Kantha, my friend. We'll go there to study and we'll play there actually. We'll go there. And this sadhu, that Mauni sadhu, he will not talk to anybody. In his sleep he was talking. When he was sleeping, in his sleep he was talking, sleep talking. So, but we could not make out what he was talking. That was very interesting. Then my friend was telling me, actually he's talking to the God, he said. He's talking to the God, so we can't understand it. Deva Bhashe, he said. ಅದು ದೇವ ಭಾಷೆ, ಅದು ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದು ದೇವರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಅವನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾನೆ. I also thought maybe. I asked him, how you know? He said, I know. So I think we writers, we also know Deva Bhasha. See, it is something different. It's something where, so I think language is not the goal. Language is a mean. And language is trying to liberate human a humanizing moment. An individual's humanizing moment help that person or character to humanize, use the language there, and just language, he has to drop that language and evolve. So that's all. The language job is done, and the characters evolve, abandoning the language. That's what I feel. That's what I do in my stories. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So language is not the mean. Language it's a mean. I mean, it is not the goal. Sometimes we harp unnecessarily on language thing. Language is there. It's a way. It's like it's a traffic. You use it as a vehicle. But goal is something else. So that's how it happens. So I always feel, because there are so many things. Experience is the thing. Experience. Literature's main purpose is experience. Like we used to use ink pen. All of us have used in our childhood. Shy pen. And we used to have only one ink pen all through the school. And it used to leak invariably. All our fingers were blue. Whatever you do, whichever soap you use, we used to use even bar soap. That blue will not become clean. But after Ganji Uta, it will become very clean. After using Ganji Uta, it will be very clean. So I still feel that ink has gone into our blood. And that ink is making us write still. See, these things, these experiences, these are the ones, not ideologies, not consciously, picked up, informations. No, these things which are there, which humanizes, these are the ones. And there are amateur, Yakshagana in our, like you have Kathakali in this thing, Yakshagana events, they happen. Not the professional ones, the school teacher, the tailor, the cycle repair wala, the mechanic, they all, once in a while, they make Yakshagana. They come, they sit in the makeup room, green room. There is a small mirror, they sit in front of them, small mirror. They remove their shirt, they remove their lungi, they start doing makeup. It is not as exotic as Kathakali makeup, but they do their own makeup. As you watch, slowly, Sudhanva comes out of that small mirror. We are more fond of looking in the, at being in the green room than watching the main show. Because we could see a school peon becoming Sudhanva, a English professor becoming a Krishna, somebody else becoming a Duryodhana, and they all emerged from the small mirror in a small green room, and they took us to another exotic world. And we came back to the routine. So these experiences, that is what literature meant to us. That's what literature is meant to be. I think we have come a bit away from that. I'm not talking about our discussion, I'm talking about in today's times. We have gone to a space where we have come to the utility value of literature, different kind of a thing. Sometimes I was telling my friends yesterday, there are more writers. It's good in a way, but there are more writers than readers. And there are more awards than writers. This ratio is very, it's good, it all should happen. But in which way? When I meet writers who have not read books. They don't read books. I met a writer, if I tell him, at least you read one generation earlier reader, he says, no sir, then I'll lose my originality, he says. What should I tell him? I tell him, if you want to, drive, you should learn driving, Baba. If you want to become a driver, you should learn at least learn medical science. Yes, then it's the same way. Science and arts are not different. It's the same way. Many people think arts and science are different. No, they are not different. Same way. This is just like medical science. Both are trying to know and understand and reduce human predicament, human pain. It's the same thing. See, this is how it is. It is a skill. It is a science. Learn, read, think. So that's how it is. So I think I will not take more time.
Wonderful,
So
sir. Thank you. On that note, I think we are almost at the end of our session. Do we have time for audience questions? Are any organizers here? It's 11:45. 5 minutes. There are any questions we can, do we have time for
I have
questions?
to say one thing about Mr. Tamilan told about the identity politics. I think if a writer has a predefined identity as a Tamil or Kannada or he is not a writer. A writer is writing to define his identity through his writing. So I am not a Tamil, I am not a Malayali, and I am not an Indian. I don't belong to any identity. I am creating my identity through my writing. So I am expecting a writer to create his identity through his writing.
Yes, I would like to add one more thing to that. I agree with him, what he said. He is trying to express his identity through his writings. But if someone asks you to write in Kannada only or Tamil only to express your identity, then that is debatable, then that's questionable. There is this question of choice of language as well, the freedom to choose one's own language, one's own culture as well, to how to express ourselves.
If I can train myself for 6 months, I can start to write in English very well. So I'm comfortable in Tamil, so that's why I'm writing in Tamil. But I'm writing in Malayalam also.
But what if your government says that you should write in Tamil only? All Tamilians, all Tamil
If somebody says to me that I have to write like this or like in a language, my duty is not to write. My duty is to fight.
Then that is the fighting. That exactly is a way of fight, write in other languages as well, sir. That's my...
I personally think we write in the language we are more comfortable with. We write in that language because I express myself best in Telugu. Why do I write in Telugu? Maybe I can write in English. There are sometimes when a few phrases actually appear in English in my mind. But when I don't write in English. I turn it into Telugu. Like somebody was saying that there was somebody thinking of some other language. It may happen. But why do we write in the language? Because we love the language. We are able to express ourselves best.
Yes, ma'am, I'm not disputing that. I'm pointing out, or I'm worried about a situation whether some other people will be commanding or demanding in which language you should write and think and read.
Then I agree
And
we have to fight.
We have to fight. And that's a fight I am.
That is what you are talking about, the purity of language.
So there comes the identity of the language.
Yeah.
There comes the identity of language, and there only comes the identity of language. That is what
That's the identity I was talking about when I was talking about purity. Purity of language, it wasn't actually purity. That word was not used in Telugu, but was the standard language was used in Telugu earlier. So Pramanika Bhasha. So everybody used to write in coastal Telugu dialect. And only for the past 30 years, people have started writing in their own area, language, linguistic dialect of theirs. So that is because they are most comfortable with it. And it was not accepted earlier. Like in China, when I was asking one of the professors there, how many languages do you have? He said 52. Then I said, so you have 52 types of books? He said, no, everybody writes in Mandarin. No book is accepted if anybody writes in their local language. Luckily for India, we are very, very fortunate that we write in our own dialect and we get away with it and we are appreciated. So there is nothing like a purity of language. That's what I wanted to say once again. One question from the audience.
Well, we all admit that there are reasons and probably more positive movements which have been decisive giving us separate linguistic identity. We all agree language should not be a barrier, right? So can we have, at least in the southern level, can we have a movement where we can collate, find out, probably put it in a structured way, a glossary for all the four South Indian languages, which can eventually lead for better understanding one another, better common literature, and probably a common dialect. Can we?
Well, that's a good idea, but I think the Book Brahma organization is doing the same.
Yes. I request Book Brahma to have a translator's bank for South Indian languages, where you can take loan of one translator for one language, and That will be wonderful, no? A bank of
We
translators.
did not even get into translation today, but this was a wonderful panel anyway. I thank the panelists for their time. Thank you very much.
ಬುಕ್ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ ಉತ್ಸವ 2025 ಇದರ ಈ ದಿನದ 3ನೇ ವಿಚಾರಗೋಷ್ಠಿ ಇದೀಗ ನಡೆಯಲಿದೆ.
ಸೊ ಬಿಫೋರ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಹೈಲೈಟ್ಸ್, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆರ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಫೆಸ್ಟ್ ವಾಸ್ 2024 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ವಿಷಯನೇ. ಬಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಕೂತು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ. ಇದರೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನಿದೆಯೋ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳನ್ನ ಅಥವಾ ಲೈವ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮಿಂಗ್ ಈಗಲೂ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಕಳೆದ ಬಾರಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾದ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದನ್ನ ಅಂತ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ತಿಳ್ಸೋಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಸಿ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ನಮಗೆ ಹೊಸ ವ್ಯೂವರ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಒಟ್ಟಿಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಫಾಲೋವರ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ವ್ಯೂವರ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ನಮಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಂತಹ ವ್ಯೂವರ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಅಥವಾ ವ್ಯೂಸ್ಗಳು ನಮಗೆ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಫೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸೊ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಆಗಿ 90,254 ವ್ಯೂವರ್ಸ್ ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಅಷ್ಟು ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರೋದು ಅಫ್ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಬಿಗ್ ಡೀಲ್. ಸೊ ಅದಾದ ನಂತರ ಇಂಪ್ರೆಷನ್ಸ್ ನಮಗೆ ಬಹುಶಃ ಆ ಫೆಸ್ಟ್ನ ಯಾವುದೇ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಯಾವುದೇ ವೇದಿಕೆ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳಿರಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಅದು ಬೇರೆ ವೆನ್ಯೂಲ್ ನಡೆಯುವಂತಹ ಇವೆಂಟ್ಗಳಾಗಿರಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಂತ ಇಂಪ್ರೆಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ 4.5 million. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಮೋರ್ ಮೈಲ್ ಸ್ಟೋನ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್, ಸೊ ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು, ಎಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ವೈಡ್ 30+ ಕಂಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು ಅಫ್ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ವಿಷಯ ಅಲ್ವೇ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅದು. ಅಂಡ್ ಇನ್ನೂ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏಜ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ವ್ಯೂವರ್ಸ್ ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ಅಫ್ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ಇದು ತುಂಬಾ ಹೆಮ್ಮೆ ಪಡೋ ಸಂಗತಿ, ಏಜ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಆಫ್ 20 to 45 ಏಜ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆಗಿ ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಅಂಡ್ ಅದು ತೋರಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯದ ಅಭಿರುಚಿ ಇನ್ನಷ್ಟು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಲಕ್ಷಣಗಳು ನಮಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಈಗಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಲೈವ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾನು ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಇದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಈ ಬಾರಿಯ 2025 ಫೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಅದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಇಂದ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ನಂಬಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಂದಿನ ಹಂತಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ.
ಮುಂದೆ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ವಿಚಾರಗೋಷ್ಠಿ ಹರಿವು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಪಡಿಸುತ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ಈ ವಿಚಾರಗೋಷ್ಠಿಯ ವಿಷಯ ಬಯೋಗ್ರಫಿ, ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಅಂಡ್ ದ ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಪರರಿ ಹಿಸ್ಟರಿ.
ಇದು ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಸುಗತಾ ಶ್ರೀನಿವಾಸ್ ರಾಜು ಅವರೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ವಿಕರ್ ಅಹಮದ್ ಸಯೀದ್ ಅವರು ಇದನ್ನ ನಡೆಸ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ತಮ್ಮ ಚಪ್ಪಾಳೆಗಳ ಮೂಲಕ ನಾವು ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸೋಣ. ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮುಂದಿನ ಸೆಷನ್ ಇರುವಂತದ್ದು biography, memory and the writing of contemporary history, presenting by our partner Harivu Creations. So speakers Sugata Srinivas Raju in conversation with Vikar Ahmad Syed. So please, you are requested. Okay, so in the meanwhile, just I need a small time to get ready. So in the meanwhile, let me go through the events happening in the other stages as well. So total we have 8 stages. One is Mantapa, the other is Mathana, Akshara, Angala, Mukhamukhi, Anavarana, Pustaka, and the last is Chindaraloka. So let's see the next session which is happening in Mukhamukhi, that is at 12 o'clock. I mean, right now it is happening with Ravi Mantri. The next from 12:30 to 1 o'clock, it is with Jain Kakini. And in Chindaraloka, it is already started from 11 onwards itself. And the next session is at 12 o'clock. It is Akshara Mattu Hale, Pustaka Pridi Ink and Pages, celebrating the love of books. So, ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟೋರಿ ಟೆಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಮೂಲಕನೇ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸೀಮಾ ಕಾರಂತ್ ಅವರು ಇದನ್ನು ನಡೆಸ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವರು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಮಕ್ಕಳೊಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ಮಕ್ಕಳ ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನ ಕಲಿಯುವಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಸ್ಪದವೂ ಅಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ಆರ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ಸ್.
ಬಯೋಗ್ರಫಿ, ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಅಂಡ್ ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಪರರಿ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಈ ವಿಚಾರದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಸುಗತಾ ಶ್ರೀನಿವಾಸ್ ರಾಜು ಇನ್ ಕಾನ್ವರ್ಸೇಷನ್ ವಿತ್ ವಿಕಾರ್ ಅಹಮದ್ ಸಯೀದ್.
Sir, you're most welcome. Please, sir.
Hello, good morning everyone. Thank you for coming to this event. It's a great honor and privilege for me to be in conversation with Sugata, my senior peer in journalism. If I've been known to ramble, so I jotted down a few points and I'd like to read these out. It'll take me a few minutes, but it'll provide a good background for our conversation. I have known Sugata from the time I became a journalist 17 years ago. Sugata was in Outlook at that time, and as a young journalist, I used to follow his work meticulously. Often when I thought that I was working on an enterprising exclusive story, I would later realize that Sugata had already worked on it, which was quite a bummer for me. Yeah. We kept in touch as he later became the editor of 2 leading Kannada broadsheets and headed a prominent news channels. By this time, I read 2 of his books, Keeping Faith with the Mother Tongue and Pickles from Home, the words of a bilingual. A great deal of the material for those early books was based on his journalism. But Sugata's strength lay in providing a deeper layer of meaning in these essays, drawing from his wide readings of literature and history, his understanding of the importance of culture. A lot of us tend to forget that, His attempt at looking beyond ideological constraints, which is always tough for people to do, and is anchoring in the bilingual world of Kannada and English. For any journalist, this output would have been remarkable and would have been sufficient to ensure some kind of immortality along with the tag of a scholar. But as many of us would realize later, this was just the beginning. A few years later, Sugata had forsaken the hurly-burly grind of daily journalism to begin his work on the biography of Devegowda. I recall that we had a conversation, and then Sugata told me, "All I want to do is write books, Vikhar, that's all." I still recall the certitude of that statement. And having read his past 3 books carefully, I must say that you have redeemed that covenant that you made with yourself, Sugata. A lot of people can't say that. But the way, the spectacular way in which you have done it is remarkable. The sheer number of words that you write daily is phenomenal, and this includes your political columns for 2 prominent English broadsheets. It's a great honor that someone of your intellectual caliber resides in Bangalore, If we leave aside the early collections of essays which are noteworthy on their own and have acquired great value for their contemporary insights, some in the audience may be familiar with the recent 3 books that Sugata has published over the past 4 years. The first one was the biography of former Prime Minister H.D. Devegowda, titled Furrows in the Field, The Unexplored Life of H.D. Devegowda, which tenaciously resurrected the life and legacy of the former PM who was not given his due. In this, Sugata's efforts were concentrated intensively on constructing the architecture of Devegowda's life And for me personally, as a reporter in Karnataka, the book was valuable as this deep, exhaustive exploration provided an overview of Karnataka's political history. Because Devegowda's political career is coterminous with the political trajectory of Karnataka. His book on Rahul Gandhi, Strange Burdens, was novel in its methodology and was a ruminative, book-length political commentary on the politics and persona of Gandhi. The analytical method of Srinivas Raju in this book is interesting, as he does not rely or claim access to some private sources like other journalists do. Instead, he thoroughly dissects and scrutinizes everything that is in the public domain. The book was audacious, as it was not a book of reportage, but it was an extended exegesis of a public personality. His latest book is titled The Conscience Network, a chronicle of resistance to a dictatorship. I've been reading that over the past few days. I just finished reading it late last night. It's a fantastic book. I mean, many other adjectives come to mind, but as a non-fiction narrative, it's an extremely powerful book. If his past two books were on prominent public figures, this doorstopper of a book, with more than 500 words, 500 pages, is not about a powerful political figure, but is about how a group of feisty young men and women built a network of resistance because their conscience compelled them to challenge the might of a dictatorship, despite the grievous price that they would have to pay for this. The resistance movement was attempting to find a sliver of light in the massive shadow that Indira Gandhi had cast. Considering the impact of the emergency and the resistance to it, Sugata chose to pick up a slice of it in distant America and write a fantastic book about this saga of which most of us were ignorant. I was certainly ignorant about this. And as a journalist, as a writer, what was significant for me was that the methodology of all these three books